Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris. Have you ever wondered how to reach your goals, but you don't know how to get there? You're going to want to watch this part.
I totally put you on the spot with that intro, so that was perfect, man. You nailed it. As much as we can nail it, we nailed it.
Isn't it funny? Like nailing it is a good thing. You screwed it up is a bad
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think either way, we nailed it. I mean, it's like that TV show with the cakes. You nailed it. So
Good morning.
I'm stealing this idea, man, Cherry. This is your post that you did this morning, so hopefully this ties into it. What is one step that you can take right now to move closer to your goal? And I saw some comments in there of indecision. And so we don't know which direction to go, so we don't do anything. We're like, which step should I take? We can see the point where we want to get to, but it's like, I don't know which path to go on. And so we do nothing and we go get in our car and go home. Right. And so nothing changes. What if the pathway is unpredictable? Like you can't predict the pathway. The only thing you can see is the clarity of that pathway after you arrive at the goal. So what if there's uncertainty in the pathway? Let's say that as a possibility, we have a dice and it's got all six sides, and all six sides of that dice are possibilities. And we throw that dice in the air and it lands and it hits a possibility. And it gets measured, and we now know that the first number that came out was a 1. And we do that over and over again. And by the end of this measurement, we can see that it was a 1, it was a 6, it was a 5, it was a 2, it was a 1 over here, another 5, 2 1s. And so we're able to measure that path in a fractal pattern. It goes from 1 to 6. And if we were to diagram that out with 6 dots, we would see this fractal pathway that would appear that shows us where we get to the goal. But until we take the action and roll that dice, we might not know what the next number will be or what the next step will be. What are you hearing in that?
That makes sense for sure. I mean, as we started out, we had no idea we'd be sitting here right now at 7:02 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, February 11th, 2021, right here. Well, I didn't see this exact thing. We knew where we wanted to go, but we knew that there was an infinite amount of ways to get there. So we just started taking steps and actions, and
Okay, so I've got a thought around this that's going deep in the rabbit hole. That in physics, in quantum physics, they've been able to measure that measuring the future event predicts the past. The past knows what to do on photons. When they shoot the photon out and they measure it, that it comes out with a certain outcome depending on how it's measured. And so it'll be either in a wave form or a particle form. But once it gets measured, then it becomes a particle and it becomes solidified, and then it becomes that thing. So at the point of measurement, what they did is they created another test that kind of predicts, but it's not a predictor. It's that the path is already determined. So because at the end of it, it's going to be measured as a particle, it's also in the past measured as that particle immediately. If they didn't measure it and it became a wave, in the past, it automatically becomes that wave. And so the current events, whatever you measure right now, has the ability to go, in our version, back in time and influence the decision of that particular photon. This has been measured, that a photon that is measured today can influence that photon in the past. But we measure past in the form of revolutions of the earth. We think linearly, we think in a straight line. And Einstein and many others are like, that's just not how it works, that these things are pretty much all present to each other. And so we might not be able to see the path, but if we can trust that the path that we take is the right one to get to the goal, there's a possibility, and this is way out there, that we already know the outcome and we already know the path because we've already measured that path somewhere in our future. Like today, if you and I were to make a decision today, this is way out there, and I'd love to see comments on this, that if we could see the path today of what it took to get where we are right now, that could have an influence on our prior decisions that allowed us to create what we see today. Because it is like what we see as what is became that because of the choices that we made yesterday.
So so if you want to become something different in the future, change today, which changes your, like, influences your past. Is that?
Yeah.
No.
It all makes sense. It all makes sense.
Perfect.
Right? Yeah. I mean, there's no way to not wrap your mind around this. So who you are being right now could influence who you were being in the past. And
I now I see what we're talking about. Like we just take all of our viewers on this huge loop, and they're like start to, oh yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, totally agree with this. Yeah, they're like, this is totally accurate. I have no idea what he just said.
Jishnu knows what we just said.
Yeah,
look at that. I love. Mm-hmm.
He has the best comments. Thank you, man. It's good to see you.
I'm assuming that's Jishnu simply because of all the amazingness on the emojis. Yeah. And I know a Jishnu when I see one.
I know a Jishnu when I see him. And you should follow Jishnu. He's an amazing human.
Yes.
So here's what I'm getting at with this is that you can't predict moving forward.
It blew Amanda's mind.
Yeah, sorry.
Not
moving
just
forward,
once.
You might not be able to see the path, but your future self does. That you, where you're at right now, as you look back, the path is clear. So when you look at a tree, that tree might have a fingerprint that's different from every other tree, but you know, in a sense, that tree is either a birch or a maple or some other, like an apple tree. You know that one's going to put off fruit and one's just for looks and picnic tables. I don't. but the pattern of it, if you were to predict it from the beginning, this tree is going to go on this line and it's going to have these branches and it's going to have this many leaves. You wouldn't be able to predict it. But looking back at the tree and going in and measuring after the fact, you would be able to go in and measure every single branch and tree and limb and leaf and tree. I'll say that twice on the same tree. Measure the tree twice. But what if that measurement of the tree as it is influenced the path that it took when it began? And all it had to do was trust that it would become the thing that it would become in the form it needed to be. And so if our vision and our goal it already is, let's say that it already is today, and all you had to do was measure backward the path that got you there, then in the past, you would just follow the intuitions that would guide you to that outcome today. But being able to think of it in the future and predict it, you don't know. You go off of feeling and intuition, which means that you want to be feeding into yourself the things that would allow you to intuit that, because you draw on what you know. And so as you add information to it, you open up more entropy and more chaos in your world. Like if you think about the brain, it started out with just a speck of neurons, and then it expanded out into chaos. And the more chaotic it got, the more knowledge you gained. And so in that pursuit of entropy and expansion, your brain expanded out into all these possibilities, which opened up your universe inside of your head to see more and more ways to reach your goals. So the more you add in there,
the clarity from chaos.
Yeah, you get the clarity from adding chaos, in a sense, adding more information, more neural pathways, more networking, so you have more to draw from. And so as you move forward, you might not know how you're going to get to that path, but your future self does. And so if you can trust that and intuit it and keep adding that information, you have more to draw from and you have more pathways to choose from. I'm getting way out there on this.
I think it's awesome. But I just learned that trees have fingerprints too.
They do. I mean, our fingerprints are similar. right? But they can be measured as different. And that's why they use them as an identifier, is because they're all slightly different. Similar patterns, but different outcomes. And so the thing with goal setting is that you're going to do similar behaviors on a daily basis, but you're going to create different outcomes based on those behaviors. And so the simplicity of the thing with fractals that I love about fractals is that they are self-similar patterns that repeat. But when repeated, they create complexity. And so when you look at your behaviors for reaching a goal, it's self-similar behaviors that you use day in and day out that are used the same way on a small goal as they are on a big goal, which not a big gulp.
I know, it's like...
But it's the idea that you might not see clearly moving forward the path, but if you're able to look backwards, you would. But the idea is not to know. You don't need to know the path moving forward. You need to just trust that the action you take will get you to the outcome you're looking for, whatever that action is. You might take a branch off to the one side and then come back in off of that branch because it didn't get you there, and you come back to the core and move out in another direction. I love trees for this, especially right now in the winter where you can see all the bifurcations and branching. I mean, goal setting and goal reaching is like that. The tree is the goal, but we think the end of the tree is the goal. Like, at which end of those points are you talking about? Because all of those points make up the tree. And so it took all of them to create that tree. Just like if you only had one blood vessel running through your body, you probably wouldn't function very well. It takes all of these branches and divisions and splits and recirculation for this to function. And so as a body, it all makes sense. Individually, you're like, I don't know which direction to go. But if you trust that the whole thing, the body as a goal is complete, then you trust that every branching that occurs within that supports that thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the viewer at home, the person that's sitting there just turning us on.
Sorry, early.
Saying, hey, I have. What's the one thing? What would be the first place to start with that?
So in the park bench yesterday with Nora, I talked about a simple behavior pattern that you can do that'll create your outcomes. And that is, I want to do something, or I have this idea to do something. I am going to do that. So making the decision to do it, to doing it, to you've done it. So you have the idea and the inspiration, you make the commitment to act on it, you act on it, and then you did it. And so the pathway becomes clear in a small degree. Now, that also shows up in the larger degree. So that self-repeating pattern of, I'm thinking of doing it, I'm doing it, I did it. I'm thinking of doing it, I'm doing it, I did it. Or I'm going to, you make that commitment, you do it, and you did it. But it's hard to know the outcome when you don't take any action. When you get in that in between and you're not making that decision and you get stuck, that's where it's hard, because you're not moving in one direction or the other. The goal is get into movement, because that's when you start to see the pathways open up. That's when you see the opportunities. Keep adding information in, because it opens up even more ideas and thoughts that down the road your future self is going to thank you for, because you put that in there. And if as a possibility you can influence the past based on what you do today, or this is such a conundrum. Your past could be influenced by what you know right now. And so your future self, whatever that looks like, could influence where you are right now. The decision that you make today could be being influenced by that future self who is already at the place that you want to be at. And it's sending back a signal saying, take this path. That's where you trust your intuition that you're doing the right thing.
Which goes back a little bit to what I said in the beginning. Like, we didn't see ourselves in this spot per se.
Right.
We knew goals, and we knew what we wanted to start to achieve, and we started moving in, putting it into action, and then stuff started to come in. And a lot of times it wasn't exactly how we had planned it to be or had thought it to be, and sometimes it took us on a little bit of a different angle. We met Richard Paul Evans through total different angle.
Well, let's go back to the analogy of the dice, right? Let's say you've got 6 points along the bottom, and you're 6 levels deep, and at the top, you've got your 6 points across the top, right? Your goal is to go from that bottom layer to the top. And let's say that top, no matter how you got there, is guaranteed. You are going to arrive at 6 throws of the dice. And at that point, you're going to measure. What is unknown is the pathway that gets you there. And depending on who's throwing the dice, there could be multiple paths running through that, depending on what dice comes up. But all of those are possibilities for you. But the only thing you need to know is where you're starting from and where you're going to end up, where you're going to measure basically at the end of the goal. Mm-hmm. The in-between is open to possibility. So as you roll the dice, the path appears. As you step out on the path and the uncertain, the path appears. And it might be different for every person, but the end goal is similar. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The 6 points in between are irrelevant because it could happen in infinite ways. And that's where we get hung up. Well, I want to choose the right path, but you're eliminating all those possibilities because you have to find the one right path. This is what we talked about the red marble yesterday with Nora, right? You want the one right path. And when it doesn't go that way and you get afraid of that decision, well, remember in the past when you did this and you get afraid of making that decision again because you don't know what it's going to be, what the outcome is going to be. You don't need to know what the next step's going to be. It'll appear as you roll the dice, as you step into action. But all you need to know is that the thing I'm creating is. So how I get there, I don't care.
Hugh says is making a decision in action.
Is making it, yes. Yeah. That's an action.
I think that's the start of it too. That's the getting it's a step further than some people.
Well, decision, if you think of the word decision, it means to cut off. So to cut something is a physical action, but also a mental action. It's this cutting off of an old way of being. It's a decision. And then the choices that come in, he had this question yesterday about choices. The choices are the individual decisions you make along the way. And so you really just want to, with your vision of what you're creating, you don't know how it's going to happen. It's like a fingerprint. That outcome could happen in so many different ways. But what you need to trust is that the self-similar behavior that you repeat day in and day out grows in mass and creates the outcome, just like what you and I have seen. We couldn't have predicted this looking backward. Like going back to the start, this wouldn't have even been on the horizon today. But as we moved forward, it became more and more clear this is the direction we need to go. And we still have some other stuff we're creating in the future that we can't predict out. Like I'd love to see if any of you can predict the future. Let's talk. And there's some things I want to know.
It's weird because I feel like the more that we're moving forward, the more possibilities keep opening up.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's our level of consciousness too. So we start seeing more and more things.
But we also keep adding to our knowledge, which adds to the amount of chaos that we can draw from. And which means that we do have more options and opportunities. And so when you get a narrowed focus and a limited focus, then that's all you can see. When you open up to all of the possibilities, you do start to see different ways to reach your goal. It's not limited to just one way.
And so there you go. That's it. That's it, Giants. Like you just like Curtis Marsh the other day, you can be a chaos coordinator.
Yeah, it is. So keep building up the network in there because you're creating entropy. The higher the entropy, the more chaos there is, the more you have to draw from to create order. And so keep adding information in. Einstein's brain was like yours. It's no different, but he added so much information in that when it came to creating, he had more to draw from than the average human. But it wasn't because his brain was special. It's because he put more into there to create that high entropy state in his brain with more neural pathways and connections than most people have because he developed it. It was a skill. It was an effort. It's like Michael Jordan. You don't go and walk onto the Chicago Bulls and win a championship ring just because you had the thought. Like the dude worked, right? And he created a space where he could become that. And that's just one way of becoming. So don't limit yourself based on what you know currently. Like if you don't know something, add to your chaos, like add to that information so you have more to draw from.
Perfect.
Yeah. Feel good? Complete?
I feel great.
Any other thoughts?
Nope. Just go make it a giant day.
Yeah. So what's one thing you do? Step. What's one step you can take right now? Just step. Just step. Just do it. So, okay, Giants, thanks for watching. I don't
catch you
I
on
don't
the
know
next.
Yeah.
On the next time.
Make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube and follow us in the Tribe of Giants. Appreciate you guys. Take care and make it a giant day.